Hi guys, it's Miss Vaughn. So I made you a little art pack. It's in a Ziploc bag that you need to pick up at school, and I wanted to go over what's in it and like the rules for using it. Because if we were in art class and you were in my physical classroom, we would have like a crazy ton of rules about how to treat all of our materials. So I wanted to kind of give you guys a little bit of information about how to treat what I put in there and what I put in there. So the first thing I put in there is, well, actually it's not in the bag because it doesn't really fit very well, is watercolor paper. So this is really, really thick paper. I mean, when you pick it up, you'll be like, dang, this is like the thickest paper I've ever picked up. And it is because if you try to put water on paper that's like just normal, computer paper, it'll kind of like shrivel up and get misshapen. So you have to have really thick paper that can soak up all the water that you're using. Otherwise, you really can't make a nice painting and things will start bleeding together and it'll be a big mess. There's a circle drawn on it because we're going to be using one side of the paper for a color wheel. The cool thing about this paper is that it's thick enough that we're going to be able to use both sides. So like I said, I went through the art closet and there was no supplies in there that there used to be. So I went and I bought this paper for us to use in class. So please don't waste it. One thing you would learn, like if you were in art class, is like you hardly ever start with something in the middle of your page. Like you decide how much of the paper you actually need and then you cut it off. So that's something you see people do that are not real artists. Like they start in the middle or they start cutting like into the middle. But if you are really an artist and you're poor because you have to spend so much on art supplies, you do not do that because then you feel like you've wasted a whole bunch of money. So anyways, there's other paper in there. It's just regular computer paper, but I wanted you guys to have something that wasn't lined. In the future, I'll probably buy you some art paper and stick those in your packs in the beginning. Okay, so if I had thought ahead enough for term one, I would have given you guys some pencils and erasers from the beginning, but I didn't. So, now we're in the future instead of the past. And I included 3 pencils in your art pack. Basically, you're only going to use probably the HB pencil. That's like the regular pencil that you almost always use in art. But I included the other 2 just to teach you something really important. So an HB has an H and a B. It's like the average hardness and the average blackness. So it's a darkish, it's like a medium pencil. It's not super hard, it's not super soft. If you look at these other pencils, they have 2H, or I think I might have given you 4H, but I don't remember, but I don't have a 4H at home. So I have 2H and a 6B. So the B stands for black and the H stands for hardness. The closer you get to 1, so the lower the number is, the harder the pencil is. So like mine is a 2H right here, and if you try coloring with this, like it's the lead itself is really hard. That's good for if you're drawing something and you're using sketch lines and you want it to be really light, because not very much of the lead is going to come off onto the pencil, onto the paper. Except if your paper is really textured. So like watercolor paper is kind of textured and that's on purpose. If it's a smooth paper, then this is really not going to do too much to it. But if it's a textured paper, even if you erase the line, because this lead is so hard, it'll still leave a mark. So in that case, you'd want to draw really lightly with something like a 6B pencil. So the bigger the number is on this one, the softer it is, and the B stands for black. So if you made a mark with your 2H or your 4H and your 6B right next to each other, you'd notice that the 6B is a lot darker. So that's something, if you're adding like texture and all you can use is line, then you might vary your pencil lead, because that would still give you some variation in your line thickness and the texture of your line as well. Okay, so I wanted to show you about those. The next thing is a kneaded eraser. So you have a little piece that's about 1/4 of this size. That's because I had to go out and buy kneaded erasers. This is a special type of eraser that artists use. It's covered in plastic. You should keep the plastic. Don't throw it away, okay? You're going to put your kneaded eraser back into that little piece of plastic. It won't fit perfectly like right now, how it is, but kneaded erasers are cool because you can make them into the shape that you need them to be to erase the thing that you need to erase. So like in art, if you write the word wrong on a piece of paper and you're trying to turn something in, you can just erase it and you can erase the whole word or the whole letter. But in art, you might want to erase something like really, really, really small. So you can kind of point this and make it into a point, and then you can kind of get in there a lot better to what you're trying to erase. Another thing that's good about it is instead of having to rub your paper like you do with a normal rubber eraser with a kneaded eraser, you can just, I'm sorry, I'm going to demonstrate this right here. You can just push it into the paper and it'll still take the color off. So then you're not damaging the texture of the paper either. Because these are things that are really noticeable if you're making something in art class. So when you guys are done with your kneaded eraser, please wash your hands before you use it, because we live in the COVID and I could just picture a virus living in here. Like, I don't know. Viruses aren't even technically alive. Don't get me started. But, I could picture it surviving in here until it gets into your body. So let's go ahead and just make sure we wash our hands before we use it, and then you can put it back into your plastic to kind of keep it safe. If you have a piece of saran wrap or a piece of plastic bag that you want to cut and use that instead because it's a little bigger, that's cool. You don't have to store it in a perfect little square. Just put it back and cover it, because if like dog hairs and stuff get in here, that's gross. I don't want dog hairs in the kneaded erasers, please. Or cat hairs. And I have cats, that's why I'm keeping mine covered up in this plastic. Okay, the next thing I put in there was a selection of colored pencils. Like I said before, the art closet used to have a really nice selection of colored pencils, but now they're gone, and so you just got what I had in my classroom, which is not that great. If you want to go out and buy yourself some colored pencils, this is the brand I recommend. It's called Prismacolor. You can get a set of 12 of them, I think, at Walmart, and they're not too super expensive. But if you get the Premier line, they're like, you can really tell they're more expensive than just Crayola colored pencils. I tried to only put Crayola colored pencils in your guys' little packs because they really are superior. I've held that belief since I was a small child, and I still hold to it. But of course, then these are like the artist grade. So there's a selection of colored pencils in there because we're doing a unit on color, and so you're going to need to add some color to things, but we're not going to be like coloring too many things in this class. So if you didn't get every single color, or you want to supplement with something from home, then you're totally welcome to. But I just put some in there in case at your house you had nothing to color with. So the next thing that I have in there is a watercolor palette, and this is actually a brand that's pretty cheap for a lot of things, Prang, but their watercolor is like so good. Not the glitter ones and the metallic ones, but their plain regular colors are just like, oh, they're like the best. So I gave you guys all two because sometimes, like, see on mine that I have, the blue is almost gone. So in case you're going to use a lot of blue in your painting, I gave you guys two so that you can get some of the blue. Please, 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 please try not to mix these up. My recommendation, so that you don't mix colors, is that you can actually take the little ovals out. Okay, so like if I wanted yellow, honestly, I would rinse this yellow off before I use it because it's like really contaminated with some other colors. And then before you put it back in to the little oval, let it dry, because that'll make sure that you can not mix it accidentally with other colors, because then it kind of taints the original pure color, and I don't want to do that. Well, I don't want you to do that. Nobody wants that to be done. This palette is made with these little wells kind of at the top. So well means just like a little hole in something. Those are for mixing watercolors. I'm not going to have you guys do that because I feel like it's way too easy to mess them up. So what I did was I included 5 little tiny cups in there. Please do not destroy those little cups. Do not throw them away. They are purchased little cups that I can reuse because you just rinse them off when you're done. Okay. All right. So that was this. I also included a plastic pipette. Pipettes are actually pretty common in the art world because they help you apply like the right amount of water to something when you're mixing it. So this one I think is a 1 milliliter. So like if you fill it up to the top, that's 1 milliliter. And we're actually going to mix some paints, and we have to have some measurements. Otherwise, all of our paints would be different colors, and we do need them to be different colors, but we want them to be steps of different colors. Like we want them to be a consistent, we're going to make a value gradient, but we're going to make it with a certain amount of water in each one so that we dilute it so that they all are different shades of the same color, or tints, depending on what we're adding. Okay, the other thing in there is what looks like a kind of cheap paintbrush, but actually this is a camel hair paintbrush, so it is not cheap, and it's not made out of plastic. This is real hair from a camel, so if you've never pet a camel before, you can just give that a little pet and you can see how it feels. It's washed, so if you smell it, you won't smell camel. I'm sorry. I would like to know. I've never been really that close to a camel. But this brush is actually pretty nice, so I need you to take good care of it. What that means is that you rinse it every single time you use it. For now, we're only using watercolor. When watercolor will not ruin the brush if you leave it in there, but you need to pretend like it will ruin the brush if you leave it in there, because on the quiz, I'm going to say, if you leave paint on your brush, you will ruin it. And that's going to be the correct answer, because that's basically always the case, except with watercolor. But watercolor even can stain the bristles because of the pigment, so we're just not going to do it. We're just going to rinse it off when we're done with it. You need to let it completely dry, and you need to let it dry, like if you put it in your dish strainer like this, the bristles will kind of bend, and then it won't be the right shape ever again. So you need to let it dry. Like the best way to do it is if you can hold it upside down like this, but it's not touching anything, like, oh wait, so that it's not touching the bottom of the strainer. I can't do that in my house anyplace. I don't have a good paintbrush holder for drying, so I just leave it flat on a paper towel, or like my kitchen towel or whatever, because it's just got water and watercolor in it. Okay. I think that is all that I wanted to tell you guys. There will be a quiz over this because I want you to know what all of these things are. So if you took notes during this video, which I didn't tell you to do, but you could watch it again and take notes if you want to. And I think that's all I have to say. I will get you guys started on your watercoloring paintings next week. So whoopee, make sure to go pick up those packs of art supplies. Have a good day and enjoy the beautiful weather. I've gone outside so many times today because I just can't get enough of the beauty of New Mexico when it's cool and not sunny.